She grabbed my dress and ripped it right there in front of the entire mall crowd, laughing as I stood there humiliated. But when that Rolls-Royce pulled up and my husband stepped out, her laughter died. What happened next left everyone speechless and her begging at my feet. Before I reveal this jaw-dropping story of instant karma and shocking revenge, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. What you're about to hear will give you chills and prove that karma has perfect timing. You won't believe how this ends. You know, I've always believed that how you treat people when you think nobody important is watching says everything about your character. But I never imagined I'd learn this lesson in such a dramatic way, right outside the Golden Plaza Mall on what started as a perfect Saturday afternoon. I had just finished what I thought would be a peaceful shopping trip. My husband was tied up in important business meetings all day, so I decided to treat myself to some retail therapy. I love these quiet moments to myself, browsing through stores, picking out things that catch my eye. There's something therapeutic about it, you know? Just me, some soft music playing in the background, and the simple pleasure of finding something beautiful. But from the moment I stepped into that high-end jewelry store on the 3rd floor, I could feel tension building. There was this woman there, elegantly dressed in a white designer suit, dripping with expensive accessories, the kind of person who expects the world to revolve around them. At first glance, she looked like she belonged in these upscale stores. But appearances can be so deceiving. I was admiring this gorgeous silver necklace in the display case when I heard her voice for the first time. Sharp, demanding, with an edge that made my skin crawl. "Excuse me," she snapped at the young sales associate. "I asked you a question." "Don't you know who I am?" The poor girl couldn't have been more than 20, and I could see her hands trembling slightly as she tried to help this woman. I tried to mind my own business, but it's hard to ignore someone who's making such a scene. This woman was upset because apparently the exact necklace I was looking at was the last one in stock, and she wanted it. But here's the thing, I had asked to see it first. The sales associate was just being professional, explaining that I was ahead in line. "Are you seriously telling me," this woman said, her voice getting louder, "that you're going to serve her before me?" The way she said her, like I was some kind of insect she'd found in her soup, I felt every eye in the store turn toward us. Other customers stopped their browsing, and even the security guard near the entrance started paying attention. I tried to diffuse the situation. "It's okay," I said gently to the sales associate. "She can look at it first." I've never been one for confrontation, especially not in public. But this woman, she looked at my gesture of kindness like it was some kind of weakness. "Of course I'll look at it first," she said with this condescending smile. "People like you shouldn't even be shopping in stores like this." Her eyes swept over me dismissively, taking in my simple red dress. Nothing fancy, just something comfortable for a day of shopping. "This is clearly out of your price range anyway." The entire store went quiet. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment, not because I couldn't afford the necklace, but because someone would be so publicly cruel to a complete stranger. The sales associate looked mortified, other customers were staring, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. But I kept my composure. I've learned over the years that responding to cruelty with more cruelty never leads anywhere good. "I hope you enjoy the necklace," I said quietly, and started to walk away. That should have been the end of it. I should have just left the store, continued my shopping, and forgot about the whole unpleasant encounter. But this woman, she wasn't done with me yet. As I walked toward the exit, I heard her voice again, louder this time, clearly intended for everyone to hear. "Some people really don't know their place, do they?" she said to the sales associate, but loud enough for the whole store. "Coming into nice stores, wasting everyone's time when they obviously can't afford anything." She laughed, this cold, ugly sound that made my stomach turn. I stopped walking. Something inside me wanted to turn around and respond, to defend myself, but I took a deep breath and kept going. I had better things to do than waste my energy on someone so bitter. But as I continued my shopping trip, visiting different stores throughout the mall, I kept running into her. It was like she was following me, or maybe we just had similar shopping routes. Either way, each encounter became more uncomfortable than the last. In the clothing boutique on the second floor, she made loud comments about how some people try on clothes they can't afford, just for attention. In the shoe store, she questioned the manager about their customer standards while looking directly at me. Each time, she gathered more attention, more stares, more whispered conversations among other shoppers. I started to feel like I was being hunted. Other customers were beginning to recognize the pattern too. I could see them looking between us, sensing the tension, some seeming uncomfortable with her behavior, others unfortunately enjoying the drama. Social media has made everyone hungry for content, and a public confrontation was exactly the kind of thing people love to record and share. By the time I was ready to leave the mall, I was emotionally drained. All I wanted was to get to my car and head home to the peace and quiet of my own space. I had my shopping bags in hand, walking toward the main entrance, when I heard those familiar sharp heels clicking on the marble floor behind me. "Well, well," came that voice again. "Look who's finally leaving. Did you actually buy anything? Or were you just window shopping all day?" I turned around to find her standing there with a small crowd of onlookers who had apparently been following our drama throughout the mall. Some had their phones out, clearly ready to capture whatever happened next. The main entrance area was busy with foot traffic, families, couples, teenagers, all going about their Saturday afternoon, now stopping to watch what was unfolding. "I'm just heading home," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and steady. "I hope you have a nice day." But she stepped closer, her eyes flashing with something that looked almost like excitement. "Oh, don't give me that polite act," she said. "I know exactly what you're doing. You've been following me around all day, trying to shop at the same stores as me, probably hoping to copy my style." She gestured to my simple outfit with obvious disdain. "Well, let me give you some free advice. You'll never have the class to pull off what I do." The crowd was getting larger now. I could see people pulling out their phones, the familiar glow of recording lights starting to appear. Someone whispered, "This is getting good," and I felt my heart sink. I was about to become someone's viral entertainment. "I wasn't following you," I said firmly. "I was just doing my own shopping. Please, just leave me alone." "Leave you alone?" She laughed that cold laugh again. "Honey, you made this my business when you decided to embarrass me in that jewelry store, acting like you could afford that necklace, making me wait while you pretended to shop." Her voice was getting shriller, more aggressive. "People like you need to learn your place." That's when she reached for my shopping bag. "Let's see what you actually bought today," she said, trying to grab it from my hands. When I pulled back, she grabbed harder, and suddenly we were in this ridiculous tug-of-war over a shopping bag while dozens of people watched and recorded. "Let go!" I said, louder than I intended, but she wouldn't. She was pulling with both hands now, and in the struggle, one of my bags tore open, spilling its contents across the marble floor. Clothes, accessories, receipts, everything scattered in front of this growing crowd of strangers. I bent down to gather my things, my face burning with humiliation, when I felt her hand on my shoulder. Before I could react, I heard the sound of fabric tearing. She had grabbed the shoulder of my red dress and pulled, hard. The dress ripped from the shoulder down to my waist. I stood there in the middle of the mall entrance, half-dressed, exposed, while hundreds of people stared and recorded. The sound of phones clicking, people gasping, some laughing, it all seemed to echo around me like I was in some horrible nightmare. I tried to hold the dress together with my hands, but the tear was too big, too obvious. "Oops," she said with that same cold smile, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Looks like your cheap dress couldn't handle it. Maybe next time buy something with better quality." The crowd was loving it. I could hear people sharing the video in real time, sending it to friends, posting it online. This was going to be everywhere, within minutes. I felt tears stinging my eyes, not from physical pain, but from the complete humiliation of it all. She was standing there, practically glowing with satisfaction at what she'd done. "I hope this teaches you a lesson about knowing your place," she said, speaking to me like I was a child who'd been caught stealing. Some of us belong in nice places, and some of us, well, don't. I was still trying to hold my dress together, my hands shaking, when I heard it. That distinctive sound that I'd know anywhere, the deep, smooth purr of a very expensive engine. It was getting closer, and something about it made the entire crowd turn their attention toward the street. A Rolls-Royce was pulling up to the mall entrance, not just any luxury car. This was the kind of vehicle that makes people stop and stare even in wealthy areas. Gleaming, perfect, the kind of car that whispers rather than shouts about the owner's status. It glided to a stop right in front of where we were all standing, and suddenly the entire crowd went quiet. The woman who had tormented me all day was still smirking, clearly thinking this was just another rich person coming to shop, probably someone she could impress with her story of putting me in my place. But as the car door opened and a figure stepped out, I saw her expression begin to change. My husband emerged from the Rolls-Royce like something out of a movie. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, with that quiet confidence that comes from never having to prove anything to anyone. He moved with purpose, his eyes immediately finding me in the crowd, taking in the situation, my torn dress, my scattered belongings, my tear-stained face, in a single glance. The silence was deafening. Hundreds of people who had been chattering and laughing and recording just moments before were now completely still, watching as this obviously powerful man approached our little drama. The woman who had been so confident, so cruel, so sure of her superiority, was now staring with her mouth slightly open. I could see the gears turning in her head as she tried to process what was happening. This man, this obviously wealthy and important man, was walking straight toward the woman she had just humiliated. "Are you all right, darling?" he asked me, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made everyone within hearing distance pay attention. He slipped off his suit jacket without hesitation and wrapped it around my shoulders, covering the torn dress. The jacket smelled like his cologne, familiar and comforting, and suddenly I felt safe again. "I'm okay now," I whispered, though my voice was still shaking. He turned to look at the woman who had caused all this, and I saw something in his eyes that I'd only seen a few times in all our years together. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something colder, more controlled, more dangerous. "I believe," he said in that same calm voice, "that you owe my wife an apology." The transformation in the crowd was immediate. Gasps, whispers, the sound of phones being raised again as people realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. The woman who had been so proud, so superior, so cruel, was now facing the reality that she had just publicly humiliated the wife of someone obviously very powerful. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in the space of seconds: confusion, realization, fear, panic, and finally, desperation. Your wife," she stammered, looking back and forth between us like she couldn't quite believe it. "Yes," he said simply, "my wife, who you apparently found it necessary to assault and humiliate in front of all these people." I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. But there was no way out. Too many people had recorded everything. Too many witnesses had seen her behavior throughout the day. Her cruelty was documented, time-stamped, and already spreading across social media. I didn't know," she started to say, but he cut her off with a simple gesture. "You didn't know what? That she was married to someone you might want to be careful not to offend?" His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. "Or did you think it was acceptable to treat anyone this way regardless of who they're married to?" The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This wasn't just entertainment anymore. This was justice happening in real time, and everyone could feel it. She looked around desperately, as if searching for support from the crowd that had been enjoying her performance minutes earlier, but the mood had shifted completely. People who had been laughing at my humiliation were now looking at her with disgust and disappointment. And then, to everyone's shock, she dropped to her knees. Right there on the marble floor of the mall entrance, in front of hundreds of people and dozens of cameras, she grabbed the hem of my dress, well, my husband's jacket that was covering it, and looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "Please," she said, her voice breaking, "please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I was having a bad day, and I took it out on you, and it was wrong. So wrong. Please don't ruin my life over this." The desperation in her voice was real. She had gone from cruel and superior to broken and begging in a matter of minutes. The crowd was eating it up. This was better than any reality show, any social media drama they'd ever seen. But my husband wasn't done. "A bad day?" he repeated. "You had a bad day, so you decided to follow my wife around a mall, harass her in multiple stores, humiliate her publicly, and then physically assault her by tearing her clothes." His voice never rose, never became harsh, but somehow that made it more intimidating. "What exactly do you think would be appropriate consequences for that kind of behavior?" She was sobbing now, still on her knees, still holding onto my jacket. "Anything," she said. "I'll do anything to make this right. Please, I have a family, I have a reputation, this can't go viral, please." But it was too late for that. I could see people already sharing videos, typing frantically on their phones. This was going to be everywhere within the hour. Her cruelty, her humiliation of me, and now her desperate begging, all of it captured and preserved forever. My husband looked down at her for a long moment, then looked at me. "What do you think, darling? What would be appropriate here?" I looked at this woman who had made my afternoon miserable, who had gone out of her way to hurt and humiliate me, who was now crying at my feet. Part of me wanted to let her suffer the consequences of her own actions, but another part of me, the part that had tried to diffuse the situation in the jewelry store, that had attempted to avoid confrontation all day, felt something else. "I think," I said quietly, "that she's learned her lesson." But my husband wasn't quite ready to let it go. He reached into his jacket, the one I was wearing, and pulled out his phone. "Security," he said into it. "I need to speak with the mall manager immediately, and I'll need copies of all security footage from today, particularly anything involving harassment of customers." The woman's face went even paler, if that was possible. She realized that this wasn't over just because I was willing to forgive her. There would be consequences beyond this public humiliation. "Please," she whispered one more time. My husband looked down at her, then at the crowd that was still recording everything. "Let this be a lesson," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the entrance area. "How you treat people when you think nobody important is watching says everything about who you really are. And someone is always watching." He helped me to my feet, gathered my scattered belongings, and guided me toward the Rolls-Royce. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, everyone stepping back to let us through. I could feel hundreds of eyes on us, but now it felt different. Instead of being the victim of public humiliation, I was being treated with the respect and dignity I should have received all along. As we reached the car, I turned back one more time. The woman was still on her knees on the marble floor, surrounded by the crowd that had gathered to watch her cruelty and stayed to witness her downfall. Mall security was approaching, probably called by concerned customers. The situation was far from over for her. My husband opened the car door for me, and as I settled into the luxurious interior, I felt like I was waking up from a very strange dream. The leather seats, the quiet hum of the engine, the privacy glass separating us from the chaos outside. It was like entering a different world entirely. "Are you really okay?" he asked once we were alone. I nodded, though my hands were still shaking slightly. "I just can't believe someone would be so cruel to a complete stranger." "Unfortunately," he said, starting the car, "some people only understand respect when it's backed by power. She didn't respect you as a human being deserving of basic kindness, but she'll certainly think twice before treating anyone that way again." As we pulled away from the mall, I could see the crowd through the rear window still gathered around the woman who was now talking frantically to security. Phones were still out, still recording. This was going to follow her for a long time. "What happens now?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment, focused on driving. "Now, she learns that actions have consequences. The mall will review the security footage, other customers will share their own videos and experiences with her behavior, and she'll have to face the reality of who she chose to be today." I settled back into the seat, still processing everything that had happened. A few hours ago, I had been enjoying a peaceful shopping day. Now I was at the center of what would probably become a viral video about instant karma and treating people with respect. "Do you think I should have been harsher with her?" I asked. "No," he said immediately. "You responded with grace and dignity even when she was at her worst. That's who you are, and it's one of the things I love most about you. But that doesn't mean her behavior should go without consequences." As we drove home, I realized that this experience had taught me something important, not about revenge or power or getting even, but about the simple truth that how we treat other people, especially when we think nobody important is watching, reveals everything about our character. That woman thought she could humiliate someone she saw as beneath her, with no consequences. She thought her expensive clothes and superior attitude gave her the right to be cruel. But she was wrong, and now the whole world would know it. That's where I'll leave you hanging today. If you're dying to know what happened to this woman after her public humiliation and how my husband's connections changed everything, smash that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in this situation. Part 2 is coming soon, and trust me, you haven't seen anything yet.